What if I told you that a group of Arctic survivors predicted our modern problems a century ago? The Inuit, who've mastered life in Earth's most brutal climate, saw changes coming long before our fancy satellites did. From shifting weather patterns to vanishing wildlife, their ancient wisdom isn't just interesting, it's starting to look like a survival manual for our chaotic world. Let's start with their surprising take on what should be on our dinner plates. Have you ever noticed how your grandparents always seem to know exactly what food is good for you? Well, multiply that wisdom by about 1,000 years, and you've got the traditional Inuit people's knowledge about meat. These Arctic people have been rocking a meat-based diet since before counting calories was even a thing. And let me tell you, they're probably looking at our modern food trends like, what in the seal blubber's going on here? Here's the thing. While we're all busy debating whether oat milk or almond milk is better for our morning coffee, the Inuit have been thriving on a diet that's basically the complete opposite of what you'd find at your local vegan cafe. We're talking 75 to 90% meat. That's like having Thanksgiving dinner every single day, minus the cranberry sauce and pumpkin pie, of course. But before you start thinking they're just meat enthusiasts, there's some serious science behind their diet. Fat from their meat-heavy meals provides more than double the energy you'd get from those quinoa bowls everyone's posting on Instagram. It's like nature's version of a power bank, except instead of charging your phone, it's keeping you alive in temperatures that make your freezer look tropical. Now, I've got to share this funny story. Last week, I tried explaining the Inuit diet to my vegan friend at a cafe. There she was, sipping her green smoothie, when I told her about how the Inuit get most of their calories from animal fat. The look on her face, it was like I just told her that Santa Claus is real. But here's where it gets interesting. While she was shocked about the meat consumption, she couldn't argue with the survival aspect. The Inuit's diet isn't just about staying full, it's packed with essential fatty acids that our bodies crave. We're talking omega-3s and omega-6s, the stuff that keeps your brain sharp and your heart happy. It's like having a natural supplement store right in your dinner plate. What's really fascinating is how the Inuits' reaction to modern vegetarian and vegan diets is a mix of confusion and concern. Imagine spending your whole life knowing that meat is literally what keeps your community alive, then hearing that people are voluntarily avoiding it. It'd be like someone telling you breathing is optional. But here's where their wisdom really shines through. They're not telling everyone to start chowing down on seal meat, though they probably wouldn't mind sharing their recipes. Instead, they're warning us about something bigger, the importance of understanding what our bodies need to thrive in our specific environments. It's like they're the original nutritionists, except their office is the Arctic Circle, and their degree comes from thousands of years of survival experience. What's really wild is that while vegan and vegetarian diets are trending faster than cat videos on the internet, the Inuits' traditional knowledge about nutrition is actually backed by modern science. Those essential fatty acids they get from their diet, scientists are now saying they're crucial for everything from brain development to fighting inflammation. Talk about being ahead of the curve. Speaking of being ahead of the curve, the Inuit weren't just masters of diet, they were also incredible healers. Their traditional medical practices might make modern doctors raise an eyebrow, but trust me, they knew exactly what they were doing. Because long before hospitals and prescription drugs took over, the Inuit were the original health experts of the Arctic. And let me tell you, they didn't need a medical degree to know exactly how to keep their communities healthy. These traditional healers were like walking encyclopedias of natural medicine, except instead of reading about cures in books, they learned them directly from the land around them. These Inuit healers were like the original WebMD, except their solutions actually worked. They didn't need fancy machines or complicated prescriptions. They had something better. Generations of knowledge about local plants, herbs, and even animal products that could kick illnesses to the curb. And get this, they didn't just treat the symptoms, they treated the whole person. It's like they invented holistic medicine before it became a trending hashtag. But here's where things get interesting and a bit concerning. These days, younger Inuit are more likely to pop a pill for a headache than use their ancestors' herbal remedy. It's like trading in a trusted family recipe for instant noodles. Sure, it's quicker and easier, but are we losing something valuable in the process? Modern medicine is great, don't get me wrong. If I break my leg, please give me all the x-rays and painkillers you've got. But there's something to be said about the Inuit approach to healing. They didn't wait until they were sick to start thinking about health. Prevention was their game, kind of like having a really good antivirus program for your body instead of just dealing with crashes when they happen. The numbers tell an interesting story too. As traditional healing practices decline, rates of chronic illnesses like diabetes and heart disease are shooting up in Inuit communities. It's not just about losing ancient remedies, it's about losing a whole way of thinking about health. These days, many people are more connected to their phones than they are to their own body signals. You know what's really wild? Some of these traditional treatments are starting to get attention from modern scientists. They're finding out that maybe those primitive remedies weren't so primitive after all. It's like discovering that age-old Arctic herbs can fight inflammation just as effectively as some modern medicines, or that seal oil packed with healing properties might hold secrets we're only beginning to understand. But here's the real kicker. We're not just losing healing practices, we're losing a connection to the land itself. Traditional Inuit healing was tied to the environment. Every plant, every animal product had its purpose. Now, with fewer people learning these practices, that knowledge is slipping away faster than ice cream on a hot summer day. It's not just about losing remedies, it's about losing a whole way of understanding our relationship with nature. Speaking of understanding nature, you wouldn't believe how the Inuit managed to find their way around the Arctic without Google Maps. No street signs, no "you are here" markers, and definitely no recalculating route from a robotic voice. You know what's really funny? I once tried to meet a friend at a new coffee shop without using my phone's GPS. I ended up 3 blocks away at a pet store, convinced it was the right place until I realized lattes don't usually come with dog biscuits. Meanwhile, the Inuit are out there reading wind patterns and star positions like they're browsing through a cosmic newspaper. Their navigation system is actually pretty incredible. They use everything from the direction of snowdrifts to the behavior of animals as their personal compass. It's like having a whole network of natural GPS satellites, except instead of satellites, it's things like knowing which side of the trees has the most moss, or how the wind shapes the snow, or where the stars will be at different times of the year. But here's the scary part. We're losing these skills faster than a phone loses battery in cold weather. Most people these days can't even tell which direction is north without checking their phones. We've become so dependent on technology that basic navigation skills are going extinct faster than flip phones. And let's be honest, what happens when your phone dies and you're in the middle of nowhere? You can't exactly ask Siri for help then. The Inuit warned us about this, about how relying too much on gadgets might leave us helpless when we really need to find our way. They knew that understanding your environment isn't just about not getting lost, it's about connecting with the world around you in a way that no app can replicate. Speaking of changes in the environment, the Arctic's getting some unexpected visitors these days, and I'm not talking about tourists in puffy jackets taking selfies with snowbanks. New species are showing up in the Arctic like they got the wrong address from their migration GPS. But unlike that one relative who overstays their welcome, these newcomers are bringing some serious problems with them. Take the deer tick, for example. This tiny troublemaker used to hate the cold more than a cat hates water. But now, it's moving north faster than a teenager rushing to claim the TV remote. And it's not just bringing its appetite, it's bringing Lyme disease along for the ride. Talk about an unwanted +1. But it's not just about new creatures crashing the Arctic party. The local wildlife is acting differently too. Polar bears are getting hangrier than your friend who skipped lunch, thanks to the disappearing sea ice messing with their hunting grounds. And caribou? They're becoming as rare as a phone with a full battery at the end of the day. The Inuit noticed these changes way before scientists started running around with their fancy equipment. They saw how animals were changing their usual routines, like migration patterns getting more messed up than a playlist on shuffle. It's as if Mother Nature's entire schedule got thrown out the window, and nobody gave the animals the new timetable. But here's the thing. While we're busy ignoring these warning signs like a teenager ignoring their alarm clock, something even bigger is happening up there. The ice that's been around longer than your grandfather's favorite dad jokes is starting to disappear. Let's talk about the biggest "I told you so" moment in history. The Inuit have been warning us about melting ice for about 100 years. That's longer than we've had sliced bread. And what did we do? We basically acted like a teenager being told to clean their room, nodded along while completely ignoring the message. But this isn't just about ice doing what ice does in your drink on a hot day. The Arctic ice is like Earth's air conditioning system. When it melts, it's not just making a puddle, it's starting a chain reaction that would make a domino enthusiast jealous. See, ice is nature's mirror, bouncing sunlight back into space like a cosmic game of ping pong. But when it melts, the dark ocean water that's exposed acts more like a sponge, soaking up all that heat faster than your phone battery drains at 1%. The Inuit noticed the ice getting thinner and less reliable long before scientists showed up with their fancy equipment. They saw how the ice was breaking up earlier in the spring and forming later in the fall. It's like the ice got tired of working its regular schedule and decided to take some unplanned vacation days. And here's the kicker. This melting ice isn't just an Arctic problem. Those rising sea levels are threatening coastal cities around the world. Venice might need to rename itself New Atlantis if this keeps up. And don't even get me started on how this is messing with weather patterns. It's like Mother Nature looked at her regular programming schedule and decided to throw it in a blender. But hey, at least the Inuit had a solution for dealing with one problem the changing Arctic threw at them: the crazy bright sunlight bouncing off all that snow. They came up with something pretty clever to protect their eyes. Before Ray-Ban was even a twinkle in some designer's eye, the Inuit had already mastered the art of eye protection. They created these incredibly clever snow goggles from bone or wood that looked like something between a superhero mask and those trendy tiny sunglasses everyone's wearing these days. The design was simpler than a flip phone, but way more effective. Just narrow slits carved into the material. That's it. These goggles were like nature's sunglasses, except they actually worked better than those expensive shades you keep losing. The thin slits cut down the harsh glare from snow and ice better than any modern polarized lens. Talk about working smarter, not harder. You might be wondering why they needed these in the first place. Well, snow blindness is no joke. It's like getting a sunburn on your eyeballs. The reflection of sunlight off snow can fry your eye cells faster than an overheated smartphone. Without protection, hunters could end up temporarily blind, which is definitely not ideal when you're trying to catch dinner in the Arctic. The really cool part? Modern snow gear designers basically copied this idea. Those fancy ski goggles you paid way too much for, they're just high-tech versions of what the Inuit figured out centuries ago. And nowadays, with eye problems like cataracts and glaucoma becoming more common than cat videos on the internet, maybe we should have been paying more attention to their eye protection wisdom all along. Speaking of wisdom, wait until you hear about their version of the Olympics, which is their extreme sports that would make your gym workout look like a nap in the park. Take the 1-foot high kick, for example. While we're struggling to touch our toes, these folks were jumping up and kicking targets with one foot while landing perfectly on the other. It's like doing a split kick ninja move, except you have to stick the landing better than a cat jumping off a counter. But that's just the warm-up. Ever tried the seal crawl? Forget those trendy workout classes. Try dragging yourself across the ground like a seal while everyone watches. It's basically the original burpee, except instead of looking like everyone else at the gym, you're flopping around like a fish out of water. But here's the thing. It built exactly the kind of strength you need to actually hunt seals. Talk about functional fitness. Now, if you really want to test your toughness, there's the ear pull. Yes, you heard that right. 2 people, 1 piece of string looped around their ears, pulling until one person gives up. It's like thumb wrestling, but about 100 times more intense and definitely not something you want to try during your lunch break. This game wasn't just about physical pain. It taught mental toughness in a way that no motivational poster ever could. These games weren't just about showing off or winning bragging rights. They were training for survival, wrapped in a package of friendly competition. While we're busy counting steps on our fitness trackers, these games are preparing people for the real challenges of Arctic life. Plus, they brought communities together better than any modern team-building exercise. Nothing bonds people quite like watching someone hop on one foot trying to kick a target hanging in the air. Speaking of survival skills, the Inuit had some pretty strong opinions about what tools were actually worth keeping around. And they remind you, don't trade your tools for trinkets. Sounds like something your dad would say after you swapped your lawnmower for a box of Pokemon cards. But when the Inuit say it, they're dropping some serious wisdom that's more relevant today than ever. While we're busy trading our time for likes on social media, they're reminding us what really matters for survival. In the Arctic, a good tool could mean the difference between eating dinner and becoming dinner. You wouldn't trade your harpoon for a shiny necklace, That would be like selling your car for a really cool screensaver. Sure, the screensaver might look nice, but good luck getting to work. The Inuit understood something we seem to have forgotten. Practical value beats pretty packaging every time. But here's where it gets interesting for our modern world. We're constantly trading our most valuable tools, things like clean air, drinkable water, and stable climate, for the equivalent of digital trinkets. We're choosing short-term profits over long-term survival faster than a teenager trades their homework time for TikTok scrolling. It's like we're all sitting in a boat, drilling holes in the bottom because we like the way the water sparkles as it comes in. The really wild part? The Inuit saw this coming. They watched as people started prioritizing quick gains over sustainable practices. While they were carefully preserving their hunting grounds and maintaining their tools, they saw others burning through resources like a kid with birthday money at a candy store. The Inuit approach was simple. If it doesn't help you survive and thrive in the long run, it's not worth trading your essential tools for it. Today, we're dealing with the consequences of not heeding this warning. We've traded sustainable agriculture for quick profit farming that depletes the soil. We've swapped clean energy development for the quick fix of fossil fuels. It's like we're playing a massive game of Jenga with Earth's resources, pulling out blocks and hoping the whole thing doesn't come crashing down. But unlike that Jenga tower, we can't just reset and start over when things fall apart. The Inuit knew this. Every tool, every resource, every skill was precious because their survival depended on it. Maybe it's time we started looking at our planet's resources the same way they looked at their tools, as something too valuable to trade for temporary pleasures.